Hello gamers, Power Heal, and we're back again. So this time we're going to be talking about gold buying like I promised, kind of like a tangent of the GDKP video. And it kind of started because I was reading Reddit like earlier in the day, and I saw a thread about like don't stop at GDKP or something like that, permaban gold buyers. And this is something that I've honestly been a big fan of for a long time. I've always said that how they should handle this, and I think this guy pretty much had the same idea, which, you know, is pretty, like, I think it's a pretty basic idea, so it doesn't surprise me, right? Is we know how hard it can be to deal with bots, although I still think that the efforts that Blizzard has put forth to deal with bots are very bad. I mean, you could just put like a GM on one of these servers and have them like scroll through the layers, and they'd see like so many bots, just like you could at least ban the obvious bots, and those are the ones that do the most damage, right? Like, so you could ban the bots that are in like DM, and you could, like, that would be a fantastic start actually. Just banning the DM bots would do so much to make the game better. And that'd be like one of the easiest ways to do it because they're just so concentrated there, right? You know, it's not like you have to ban every bot, and then like banning some of the fly hacking stuff, in my opinion, shouldn't be that hard either. But let's say that they don't want to kind of use a ton of resources in that way, right? Well, I think that another route they could go that I've always said is, so you actually ban the buyer. Now, they've been hesitant to do this for a while because obviously you don't like to ban your players, right? So it just makes more sense if you can stop the gold from getting in, and the thought process is like, well, if I stop the gold from getting in, less people will buy it, you know what I mean? So then I don't have to ban the players. But it's become clear that that's just very hard to do. And again, I think we should take more steps to do that. But I think at this point, you just ban the buyers because it's gotten so out of control. It gets out of control every launch for every game ever, every fresh. I think you should be merciless. Just swing the sword and swing it from every possible angle. Like, just cut off everyone's head left and right. Just go on a rampage, basically. Just slam that ban button. And what you can do is you just put out like a thing before you enter the game. Okay, so when you go to make a character on this 2024 Fresh Realm, a pop-up comes that you can't like skip right away. You have to click I agree or something. It's very short text, but it's basically saying that if you get caught buying gold, you will be permanently banned. I think you could also 6-month ban, like that's fine if you wanted. It's because that's basically a permaban for the purposes of like a fresh like this. But you let people know right off the bat that if you are caught buying gold, like, you know, you're just getting completely tossed off the server. And I think that would scare a lot of people. And it seems like their detection abilities have gone up dramatically because I used to play with a lot of GDKP people, as I said in the last video, in SOD. And a lot of those people essentially bought gold as well. And I didn't really play for Phase 2, but I was still around in like the Discords and stuff like that. And so many people were like getting banned. At first for like some GDKP related stuff, if they try to keep doing GDKP, but then other people were actually getting banned just for buying gold and stuff like that. So it seems like they did put kind of like a better foot forward in SOD to kind of like stamp some of that out. And I would like to see that in this version of the game. And I think that yeah, they should be banning people that are clearly buying gold. I mean, you're not going to catch everybody, right? And there's going to be people who are going to buy gold on a character. They're going to let it sit. They realize they didn't get banned. They're going to launder it over to their other character. Stuff like that's still going to happen, right? So you're not going to ban everybody. But even just having another account with the pure purpose of laundering gold is kind of huge, right? Because now they can't use that other account like to help them play, right? Because if they're doing anything significant on that account and it gets banned for any of the gold buying activities, then they lose all that progress they made on it. So now if they want to do like 2 accounts, they have to buy 2 accounts plus a 3rd account to launder the gold onto. You know what I mean? Any way you cut this, I think it's a pretty good, it's just a pretty good method of stopping this. And there's also kind of like the thing where, you know, it can happen to you at any time. Like, you know, you could have just gotten your onslaught girdle and you buy a little bit of gold here, and then all of a sudden you get it and your character just gone for the season, essentially. So, like, when people think about this stuff, they'll be like, well, I'm not going to risk my character to buy some gold. You know what I mean? And I want to kind of go into, like, why I think it's so bad. And to start, I want to start with one of the excuses that's, like, this excuse is made so much, and it's just so bullshit by, like, everybody that buys gold. And they always say, like, oh, well, I need my consumes to raid, you know? Like, I can't play the game without my consumes, so I'm forced to buy gold. Like, I'm like a dad with 8 children, and I can only log on to raid. And it's just like, bro, like, you don't need consumes to play this game, not even as a warrior. Like, this game is so easy. It's crazy. And I get what people are going to say. They're going to jump to, like, well, yeah, but the community enforces the whole min-maxing consume stuff. And I agree with you, kind of. But here's the thing. If Blizzard went on took a rigorous stance against this, and they were, like, actually banning people for buying gold, and people were now afraid of buying gold, getting their accounts banned, and stuff like that, then you would see a lot of that elitism drop overnight. Because if people don't have the gold to buy the consumes, they're still going to want to raid, right? So this is something that would kind of take care of itself, because the expectation would be lowered just by the sheer virtue of people not having the money to spend on the consumes, right? And I just don't know how people don't see that, right? If everybody's afraid to buy gold, like, because people are legitimately getting banned, then yeah, like, there's not going to be people that are just, like, kitting out their characters every week for raid for free, and you're not going to have to compete against those people, right? Because they don't want to lose their account either. So I think it would just create a much healthier environment, and it would make the game, like, harder, right? Because you have less people who are going to put forth the effort to completely destroy the game. And I think that's the type of difficulty, if anything, that this game kind of needs, right? Like, it's really the fact that people are allowed to come into every raid, like, with every possible buff imaginable. Like, that's what trivializes the game. Like, if you only have, like, some of your buffs and you only have some of your consumes, the game is still relatively easy. It's still, like, very possible for people to clear the raids. But it's nowhere near as face roll and brain dead. And I think that's, like, the kind of, like, perfect level of difficulty that people complain about this game being too easy. Like, they should love that, right? So yeah, I just I really understand that, like, you know, that criticism, or that, like, oh, like, I need it for my consumes. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. And this next point that I'm going to make, I think, is a little bit more philosophical, and I started to make it in the last video, but we'll kind of flesh it out here. But part of me doesn't really understand like, why some of these people want to play classic WoW. Because to me, like, this game is kind of, like, easy on the rating side of things, right? It just is. There's nobody who's going to sit here and argue that it's not, I think. But the fun part of the game is the world aspect. It's fighting people for stuff in the world, right? It's gathering stuff in the world, being efficient, making gold, you know, then doing the raids on top of that and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the whole package, and I kind of view all of the other things you have to do in the game as kind of things that you should be ranked at, like, you should kind of be, like, ranked on as a player. In other words, like, like it should all be one holistic thing. Like if you're not a good farmer, that should harm you in some way in the total aspect of the game. You know, that it's harder for you to get all the consumes you want to perform in the raid. I think that's okay, right? And it's not that you can't be in the raid without maximum consumes, but yeah, maybe you're not as efficient as you were. So I think like all these things, like to me, it's the holistic aspect that makes classic WoW fun. It's like a resource acquisition game where then you go into the sandbox that is the raid afterwards to kind of mess around in, you know? But I think the resource acquisition part is a lot of the fun. And I just don't understand, I guess, people who don't feel that way, because it would be one thing way back in 2004 when this was like one of the only games of its kind on the market. But there's so many MMOs now that like specialize in certain things, and like if you just want to go in and kill bosses, I kind of don't understand like why people don't just play retail, right? Because that has the most sophisticated boss killing system ever. Like the whole reason I thought this game had an appeal to a different crowd of people was because it is more of an old school MMO, right? Where you really do have to like, it's more painful to like do the gathering and stuff like that, but it's more rewarding as well, right? Because consumes are a huge part of the game, so you can augment your character's power. It's not just the gear you get from raid. If anything, the gear from raid is scarce. You know what I mean? So you want to be able to augment it as much with things like consumables and flasks and buffs and all that stuff. And it's like successfully doing all that together that really makes the game for me. That's why like I kind of love the world buff system, and like I'm not really a big fan of the boon personally. We can make a video on that another time, but like I think like making it to raid with the buffs, especially on these like forced balanced PvP servers that we're gonna have, you know, I totally kind of get if the server's like 80-20 and you're just constantly getting camped everywhere, like that's not fun, right? But if we're actually gonna have like a semi-balanced server, then I think making it to raid, like with your Songflower intact and stuff like that, and your Ani buff and everything, that's kind of cool, and that's kind of an accomplishment, and that's a reward for playing well enough to get there and to be able to utilize the buffs. And the thing is, like, you don't need to have the buffs to clear the raid, right? And I don't know, I just think people get so wrapped up in like parsing in this like 20-some-year-old game, and like I love min-maxing and like playing the game as best as I possibly can, right? Don't get me wrong. But I'm not gonna let it destroy my fun if I don't make it to raid with my buffs, right? Or like if there is a scenario where like I couldn't maybe afford all my consumes before a raid, like that's not gonna kill the game for me, and I don't understand why it has to kill a game for anybody else. You know what I mean? And I think it makes the times where you do get to raid and you do have all that stuff and you have your good run, it makes it like kind of like more exciting, right? Because like this is like your time. It's like there's a little bit of pressure. It's like you want to kind of perform now, you know, because you have all your stuff. You don't just get like infinite opportunities every week to do the same thing, and you don't get to troll every week and mess up and do this, and then you get like one good week, right? Because you had like 13 weeks of having your maximum possible buffs and maximum consumes. You know what I mean? Like the scarcity aspect of the gear that makes the game fun, and like thinking about how to overcome that and how to supplement that with other things, I think that can apply to the consumes and the buffs as well. So yeah, I think that I just can't really understand the mentality of the people where like if things don't go exactly the way they plan and things kind of get a little bit interrupted, where it just makes them like want to like all of a sudden quit the game. I can't fathom that. I don't know, just different mentalities, I guess, but I think that's like part of something you kind of like, you accept and you strive to account for all the things you possibly can to make sure things go right? But when they don't, sometimes that just happens. And yeah, I don't know. I've just never been like the person that can understand that mentality. So maybe I don't know how you guys feel about this stuff. We haven't really talked super in depth about stuff like this on the channel before. I don't like hate people that buy gold or anything. Like, I know there's a bunch of people in my guild that buy gold, and there's a bunch of people in other guilds that buy gold, right? I don't think that they're like bad people or anything like that, but I think that they are they're under the impression that this can't be done another way, and they're just fundamentally wrong, right? And they're like, but they're so deep in it that there's no way they're going to see kind of any other viewpoint of this until Blizzard actually has to step in and starts like banning people and forcing this gold out of the game or to not be used, essentially. Yeah, so that's kind of like my thoughts on that. And I also, going back to the scarcity thing a bit, like, I kind of love the idea of like people breaking out stuff like the flasks and like really expensive consumes for like a really meaningful run, you know? Like when everybody's got all their buffs and everything like that, and like that's where you break out the good stuff. And you like having to figure out ways to do encounters without it every week. You know what I mean? I think a game environment like that would be a lot more fun, where there's kind of like more scarcity, and it's not just like, because now it literally does feel like a grind, because every week you're just getting what feels like it's now become the minimum standard, minimum amount to even walk into the raid, right? Because everybody just expects these things. But if there were a lot more scarce, if you couldn't buy gold, people had to actually earn their gold, and like then it would, they'd think a lot more about using that flask of distilled wisdom. And they certainly wouldn't be like using 5 flasks of distilled wisdom to cheese mana. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know how people can have fun in that type of environment where there's like essentially no scarcity, because they're just able to buy as much gold as they want and completely trivialize the game. But I don't know, I guess that's me. Let me know what you guys think. I hope that they really crack down this time around and they whip out the ban hammer. And I know it's going to cause, like, I know some people in my guild would probably get banned, and that'd be tough to deal with, right? But I think ultimately I would just rather have it happen that way, and we'll just deal with it as it comes, next man up. And if you want to cheat, then that's the punishment that you incur. So that's how I feel, and curious to hear what you guys think as well. Yeah, if you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one.